So this was an interesting gaming support question. I was talking with a recent friend. We were talking about some D&D stuff, running some games and some opportunities, and then kind of drifting over to Wargaming, this new shop, this new store that has opened up in the community. And it looks to be a fantastic, a really great space. And they're starting to bring online other types of gaming support in the community. So they're doing the Magic thing. They're doing the card game type thing, right? That's obviously the bread and butter of most stores. They might have some games and some comics and some other things. But now it's bringing on board, let's bring on D&D. And let's bring on wargaming. And as a side note, I think if you're a store and you're bringing on wargaming, I'd love BattleTech. I'd love X-Wing miniatures. Maybe that support will be there, but I would focus on Warhammer 40,000 because the popularity is there, but not to turn this into a GW vlog because that's not the focus. The FOMO, the way they put out models, the nature of the game that it's always changing and evolving means if I'm also going to sell some product there, that product has a high turnover rate of purchase. So it kind of makes sense, and it is, in terms of wargaming, extremely well known. So I would focus on building a 40K community, and then like everything else, branch out from there. So we have this framework, and it led to an interesting point. How do you feel about stores that it's pay to play? They charge you some sort of admission to play the game on a given night, to partake in that community. And I've seen it work a lot of different ways. Now, if I want to say my primary introduction, the number one store that I really, really started playing with back in the day, fantastic store, great management, love Bishop, comic book heaven. We would go and play Warhammer 40K there. It was a comic book heaven, a comic store where very, very small, a little bit of support to play inside and to play outside. The focus was also Warhammer 40,000. And you knew you could go there on a Friday afternoon, pick up some games. Sunday was the primary play day. You could go there on a Sunday and play one or two games, always have an opponent. There was no pay to play. You just got to use their tables. You got to use their terrain. You got to use their support. But there was this kind of understanding, and I think it worked very well for the most part, where you're going to buy some of your 40K product there, whether that's you just played a game and you're like, I want to add some new units, or you're looking at some new releases in White Dwarf and they happen to be there and you'll pick them up. Or looking ahead, maybe you would order through the store. You'd say, hey, I'm working on my army. Can you put in an order for a Land Raider, and I'll be by next week to pick it up. So that understanding of community support, buying some paints, some brushes, some things like that, that was somewhat implied. Now, yes, of course, there were players that didn't support the store in that way. They bought their stuff online at discount or through other means. But even the players that were doing that, there was some kind of back-end support in that if they were showing up to play on Sunday and that had that momentum building and pushing, you knew, hey, if I show up, there's going to be 10 or 15 40K players to play. If I'm buying my army, I'm supporting my army. If I'm jumping into the community, getting into 40K, then that's that perspective from there. That model was the model I experienced for a really, really, really long time. It never really dawned on me pay to play. Now, being a little bit north of New York City, physical geographical location, I understand real estate prices. I understand rent. I understand keeping the doors open. I understand selling physical product and really always looking for other ways. I understand the nature of up and down, meaning how much physical product am I really going to move this month? Maybe some more, maybe some less. Where if I can track and I know, look, I tend to get X number of players per day coming in, then, right, the magic model, that works for kind of that projection. So I get that and understand it. The first encounter I really had with pay to play was at another store in Westchester where you had to pay a $5 entry fee. And that lasted like the whole day, the whole evening. And this is obviously if you were going to play. If I'm coming in to check out a game, buy some product, talk to the store, that's different. But if I'm showing up with my gaming cases and I'm going to roll some dice or play some D&D, $5. Now, they gave you the $5 back in store credit. They kind of kept track of it. I think it was like a little ticket thing that you got, and you could use that to purchase some snacks. I think most people, they sold snacks also. That's a vlog in itself. Most players there that I would see, whether we're playing 40K or doing D&D or other wargaming, X-Wing miniatures, you'd get some snacks. You'd easily cycle that back in. Well, it's still product. And even if you were buying your snacks for 50 cents a bag and 80 cents a bottle, how much money are you really making? If I'm doing store credit, how much money are you really making? I one time saved my store credit, and we were playing Star Trek Attack Wing. I still love Attack Wing. I bought the giant board cube at retail. It wasn't discounted online. So it was something like $180. Like, I saved my tickets up, being there 2 or 3 or 4 times a week, kicked back to that store. Yeah, I could have bought it online for a lot less, but we've got those tickets. I bought Time Stories also. I still got my Time Stories Adventures. I have to make it through. That's on the board game playlist. Getting that store credit. You got it back. Now, I think this model exists or is borrowed from, I see this a lot with Magic the Gathering, where you come in on a Friday Magic night, $20, 25, whatever it's going to be, and you get certain packs that you're going to play with. In terms of the cards in those packs, I don't know the game well enough, if it's worth that, if you get kind of lucky with a rare or an uncommon, or it's just some things to try out. But again, it's this model of like, okay, if I've got to pay to play, then I'm getting something in return. That model kind of works. Now, what about a third model? What about a third model in that it's pure profit for the store, although it's really not profit because you've got to keep the lights on, you've got insurance, you've got maintenance, you've got heating, air conditioning. You're just kind of spreading that over the player base. But how would you feel about a store that says $5 to play, $5 entry fee? And again, this is not to like buy some stuff or hang out and see some games going on. This is to physically sit down and play. D&D. If I'm sitting down to play D&D on a Thursday night, and on average, this is maybe 4 hours. If I'm paying $5 over 4 hours and just do per hour, if I'm sitting down on a Friday or a Sunday to play Warhammer 40,000, and I'm going to play maybe 4 or 5 hours, maybe 4 hours, $5 an hour, right? $5 for an entry, not even an hour. It doesn't really add up, especially if I'm playing games that take up space. It's one thing to sit down and if I pay $5, you pay $5, we're playing Magic, we've got a little bit of space in front of us. That's vastly different than playing a traditional war game like Warhammer 40K, where I've got 3 tables that I'm occupying plus some other space. What about $10 a play? What about $20 a play? Or a hybrid system where $20 to play, $10, maybe you get some snacks, you get some pizzas, you get credit in that perspective of it, then 10 also then goes to the store. I think there's some other models. Now, it's interesting where my personal thought on it is, if I'm visiting a store, yes, I'm going to support that store in product as best I can. I'm going to support that store in enthusiasm. But I understand economically, right, you're up against a lot. And the store owners, look, you need to turn a profit. You want to turn a profit. You want to pay your employees way better than average. You want to build that community. You want to expand the store. That means all avenues of revenue are absolutely open. So inherently, if I played at a store that said $10 entry and you get nothing, I understand that. I would be okay with that. But I also understand other players might look and say, well, right, what am I really getting? Well, you're getting space with it. But I still see players, and right or wrong, I can't really say because I don't know enough. I still see players that are like, absolutely not. I should be able to come to this store, sit down, play my game, and not pay anything. I should be able to have free space. Well, what's the contribution? What's the support from that? Just unscientifically looking, the biggest kickback or pushback that I see comes, and agree or disagree, I'd love to get some feedback in the comments, comes from the role-playing community. And I'm saying I'm involved in board games, I'm involved in role-playing games, I'm involved in war games. Because I think just generally the role-playing gaming community, a lot of games, yes, you're played at a store, but a lot of games are played in personal houses or residence or open play areas. We've got a couple of games going on at Barnes & Noble outside in the nice summer months here. I understand this idea of like, well, I tend to play in places that are free, so everything should be free. What I see, so there seems to be a lot of pushback from role players that are like, I'm not paying $10 to sit down to use your store for 5 hours free. No. I'll probably buy some drinks and some other stuff when I'm there. A side note, I would be selling dice like mad. I would be selling dice like crazy, and I would have it in a convenient location that I'd have it on a little cart that rolls out, maybe a big cart, and when it's role-playing night, I would just roll that dice out and push it there. I might even have a dice vending machine. That's a friend of mine, we were looking at that. On a side note, we were talking about vending machines and putting in a really, really small vending machine on a couple of local college campuses here. And I'm like, bro, I want to do dice. I want to sell dice in this vending machine. Just it's small enough. It's got a footprint on there. We're just going to sell dice. That's it. We'll make a killing on dice. The only money to be made in RPGs is selling dice. So as a store, I would push that. And if people come in to play, be honest, how many pairs of dice do you have? You know you're going to buy more. I could sell you a pair of dice right now if I talk long enough, right? You're already thinking about it. You're going to go out and do it. So I would sell RPG stuff focused on that. But I think RPG players, there's that pushback. On the opposite end, Wargamers, I've talked to guys and I'm like, if we're playing in the store and it was $5, would you pay? They're like, yeah, I'll pay. Because they're like, bro, I'm buying, see these 10 guys I got right here? Unpainted, unbuilt. I had to pay $80 for them. And I got hundreds of them. I've got this, I've got that, especially if it's a GW thing, with the exception of historicals. Historicals are like, here's my Romans for DBA. I got them for $15 and it's all I ever need, right? That's a different, Napoleonics can get a little expensive. That's a different subset. But something like Warhammer 40K, you're putting out mad money. So with that, $5, you're like, I'll pay $5. And I've been like, would you pay 10? They're like, I'll pay $10. I get the terrain. I get to hang out. I get to play. Would you pay $20? I got a couple of guys that are like, yeah, I would pay 20. 25 is where it's like, well, you know, now it's like, that's like a unit a month that I could be putting there. So I think Wargamers, 40K gamers, that's a little bit different, but I see that supporting. And board gamers tend to be right in the middle. And this is just like a completely unscientific, just me kind of looking at the local gaming stores around here and over the years. I think that perspective, board gamers, yes, you have the hybrid model of you can play it at the club and you can play it at home, but board games are now crossing that wargaming territory where you're like, oh, okay, core game, $100, $80, you're $60, like that's okay. You open it up, you're like, it's crippleware. Now I need the X packs. I need the expansion. I need season 1. I need season 2. I need season 3. I need this supplement. Well, I might as well go for the premium dice and the acrylic tokens. And next thing you know, you're like, I'm in for like $500 USD. Almost like a war game type system. Suddenly, Kingdom Death Monster isn't that expensive when you look. Side note, Kingdom Death Monster, the expense is because it's all up front. You're getting the game, which has massive content. And yes, the expansions are expensive, but it's just there in your face. It's like, if you want to do KDM, here you go. Other games are like, you just see core, core retail. You kind of miss everything else because you're like, oh, the core is $60. That's it. I'm going to do 800 for KDM. But then you're like, well, I need this expansion, that expansion, season 1, 2, and 3. And next thing you know, you're like, wait a second, just to get the experience that KDM offers, not even expansions in KDM, you're like, I'm already like $800 in from that. It's an interesting, different model. But back to this focus of pay to play, I notice with board gamers, it's kind of hit or miss. Some are like, yeah, you know, you're letting me set up my game. You're letting me connect with players in the community, $10, whether that's store credit or not, no problem. Where other players are like, I play at home for free. I'll just go and play at home for free. Different perspectives. So it was a very interesting conversation. Ultimately, I think there's a couple of different models that could work pretty well. I think there's models that depend on the system, depend on the night. But of course, you can't do D&D $10 to play, but this free to play. It's kind of got to be a universal model along there, but maybe you kick something a little bit back. And I think from that perspective, if you're going to do store credit or you're going to do that type of model for the day you play, I don't want you to walk out of there with store credit. I want you to spend it on something. And ideally, I'm just saying I want to try to upsell you on something. Or if you're going to do store credit on dice, take your store credit, buy some dice. I want you to buy some other stuff. Dice case, dice pouch. Dice pouches are out. Dice cases are in. Like, that's where we're going. Try to upsell those. Have that aspect going. I could see that model type working. Not that we want to turn this into a business, but for some, I get it. It is a business and it plays an important role in the community. There have been times, just to framework it out before I turn it over to you guys, my fellow enthusiasts, being north of New York City, there's been times we've had a lot of gaming stores where I could drive within 30 to 40 minutes, and even staying on this side of the Hudson River, lots of different gaming stores. And then for a while, there really wasn't, pre-COVID, and then COVID shut a lot of things down, understandably. I think if you have a gaming store as a resource for the community, for purchasing stuff, just to come by and hang out, right, on the way home from work, just stop in, hang out, talk 10 or 15 minutes, that is an amazing, amazing, amazing resource to have. Whether you have also a gaming club or a gaming group, that's separate. I think that's an amazing resource to have. So I understand the metrics of real estate and expenses and heat and employees paying. I get all of that, absolutely. But pay to play. Agree? Disagree? What does that model look like? And out of curiosity, certainly it's unscientific, if you participate in a local gaming store model, what does that model look like? And is it pay to play?